Yes, this Tory shot me. You said I got shot in my foot, and it didn't hit no bones or tendons. This was one of them times where it was like it shouldn't have got this crazy. It's one night. And something so out of character, does not judge an entire person's life that is really scared. Because I had never been shot at before music. Tory Lanez is going to prison for a long time after shooting Meg the Stallion. Even though he and his team have tried to discredit Megan, the evidence proves that he committed the crime and shot her in the foot after a party in the Hollywood Hills. Now his family blames the system for being corrupt after Tory was sentenced to 10 years in prison. So let's get into it. Music. Tory Lanez has been sentenced to 10 years in prison for shooting Megan the Stallion. This has been a controversial case because some people are on Tory's side, others are on Megan the Stallion side. And I understand why it's complicated. Because when Megan first went to the hospital, she told them that she wasn't shot in the foot, that there was some glass or something else that had happened to her, so she's had to go back on her original statement to clarify that yes, Tory Lanez shot her in the foot after a party at Kylie Jenner's home. Tory was charged with assisting with a firearm, having a loaded unregistered firearm in a vehicle, and discharging a firearm with gross negligence. We're here to talk about Daystar Peterson, also known as Tory Lanez, who was sentenced to 10 years in prison for the July 12, 2020 attack on Megan Pete, also known as Megan the Stallion, over the past 3 years. Mr. Peterson has engaged in a pattern of conduct that was intended to intimidate my speed, silence her, and keep her from defending and bringing her truth out despite the physical violence, verbal attacks, and attempts at public humiliation. The speed remained strong and shared the events of a faithful night. With a jury on the world, the fact that Miss Speed is a successful entertainer has brought the spotlight on the important issue of violence against women. This is an interesting case because typically in our society nowadays we stand with victims. But a lot of people, they don't see Megan the Stallion as a victim. And that's partly because Tory Lanez hasn't gotten himself in too much trouble in the past. Actually, the judge said that sometimes good people do bad things. Calling Tory a good person actions have consequences. And there are no winners in this case. Meg testified that Tory fired the gun at the back of her feet and shouted for her to dance as she walked away from an SUV in which they had been riding in July 2020. After leaving a pool party at Kylie Jenner's home, she had to have surgery to remove the bullet fragments. But Meg was quoted saying, "Since I was viciously shot by the defendant, I have not experienced a single day of peace. Slowly, but surely I'm healing and coming back. But I'll never be the same." I'm going to read a portioning of the statement that she made to the court, because I think it drives home what she's as enduring what she's trying to do. And I say on quotes every day, I think of others across the world who are victims of violence and survive. Is truly the most powerless feeling, especially when you question whether the justice system can truly protect you. Fortunately, the district attorney's office fought for me. I'm incredibly grateful to them. And the jury for the attention to the evidence in siding with the truth. But it can happen if it can happen to me. Imagine those who lack the resources and support systems to help them. Unquote. Tory Lanez fought hard not to go to prison. He was quoted saying, "If I could turn back the series of events that night and change them, he probably would. The victim was my friend. The victim is someone I still care for to this day." Because keep in mind, they were kind of like dating at this point. He added, "Everything I did wrong that night, I take full responsibility for." So it almost seems like he's admitting to what Meg is saying. Either way, Tory was stunned while the sentence was being read. But he had no audible reaction. His family and friends in the courtroom also remained quiet after the sentencing. Before the sentencing, Tory's father choked back tears about how the rapper's mother died when he was just 11 years old, just days after she first showed symptoms of a rare blood disorder. Quote, "I don't think anybody ever gets over," that he said of their youngest child, whose legal name is Daystar Peterson. But his music became his outlet. There was also a statement from the mother of Tory's youngest son, who spoke in court about his qualities. As a father, dozens more wrote letters to the judge, including rapper Iggy Azalea, who asked the judge to hand down a sentence that was transformative, not life-destroying. Tory's supporters packed the courtroom during the trial. They contended that his prosecution was unjustly brought on by Megan and powerful figures in the music industry. After the verdict was read in December, Tory's father denounced the wicked system that led to his son's conviction. Tory has now been placed into jail, and actually someone around the jail claims that Tory has been leading the daily prayer groups and has eased tensions in the protective custody unit, where he's been held. I just stood here in this Los Angeles County and witnessed the worst miscarriage of justice that this world has ever seen. You want to know how I feel? I'll tell you exactly how I feel. I got some names that I want to call: Alex Sparrow, Desiree Perez, and the whole wicked system of Rock Nation, including you, Jay-Z. Yes, yes, you who say you rose from the gutter, but you have trained and farted the souls of young men. The only independent witness in this courtroom is a man whose name is Sean Kelly. He came to court, and our attorneys, he would not even shake their hand. After you went upstairs with Capital and Alex, thought they met on Saturday before they met him. And then the man came back, so clearly his father is upset. And he claims that there's some coercion between the witnesses, and Megan's lawyers argued Megan's testimony that Tory urged her not to go to the police because he was on parole and would be in serious trouble, which was both untrue and an improper allowance of prior bad acts. While Tory's lawyers plan to appeal the conviction, it's not looking good, especially because Meg isn't doing well. I mean, this deputy district attorney was quoted saying she has permanent scarring physically, and she certainly will have emotional scarring for the rest of her life. And it wasn't just that he shot her, but I mean Megan's name has been dragged through the mud. And there are so many enemies now in the music industry because of this situation. Quote, not only did the defendant do the heinous act of shooting her, he then subjected her to 2.5 years of hell. But it looks like 10 years may not be that bad because the charges carried a maximum sentence of 22 years. Prosecutors requested a 13-year sentence, noting in a sentencing memorandum that Tory re-traumatized Meg Thee Stallion with his social media posts about the trial, which ultimately led to his followers targeting her. This entire situation has also led to the possibility of Tory being deported back to Canada. Like any human being would be an incredibly sad and down, knowing that he's not going to be around his child for such an extended period of time, and knowing that he's not going to be able to be there for the countless number of people who are dependent upon him. Look, even if you want to believe that he's guilty of these charges, one person, one night, and something so out of character does not judge an entire person's life. Either way, he's not going to jail for 2 decades, and honestly, I doubt he'll be deported because of how much money he makes out here. I mean, he's a hardworking person. His expensive lawyers are fighting for a shorter sentence, arguing that he can just go on probation. He could be released from jail into a residential substance abuse program. They claimed that Tory has alcohol abuse disorder, anxiety, and PTSD from the unexpected death of his mother when he was 11. Prosecutors said that they were skeptical of those claims because they weren't presented throughout the trial, and they actually argued that this case has nothing to do with mental health. He shot Meg because she bruised his ego. Tory's team did make some content to present in court. Actually, his lawyers played a lengthy video showing footage of his charity work and family life, which Meg's lawyers claim it looks like an award for Man of the Year than a misogynist and coward convicted for shooting an innocent woman. Quote, Tory Lanez is not the victim in this story, even though his team and himself has tried to make the world believe this. I mean, through his social media posts and him rallying up his fans, he's trying to make it seem like he's a victim of the system, when in fact he shot someone, which is just never okay. And keep in mind that these two were arguing, and he told her to dance, which I remember he said like dance, and she was leaving the SUV. When he decided to shoot her in the foot, she went to the hospital and said that it was glass, but they could tell it was bullet fragments. Everything happened, so yes. And all I hear is this man screaming as he said dance mix, and he starts shooting. And I'm just like, oh my god, like he shot a couple of times. I do think that Meg actually really cared for Tory. I mean, they were pretty much full on dating, so maybe in that moment she was trying to protect her man. Because she couldn't even comprehend that he would go off and shoot her. She was good at saying, you think I'm about to tell the police that we us black people have a gun in the car? You want me to tell the law that we've got a gun in the car so they can shoot us all up? She also is left with permanent physical damage, which if you guys know.